Sally Hogshead shares some surprising information on why we buy.
Throughout history, there are these 7 triggers that influence every decision that any human being has ever made.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, do you ever wonder why you're drawn to certain products and not others, and why some brands succeed and some don't? Well, our next guest says that marketers are appealing to you with 7 emotional triggers, and she's here to tell us what they are and why they work. Please welcome the author of a book called Fascinate, Sally Hogshead.
Welcome, Sally. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
I think this is such a great book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
It really is fascinating. And I'm just thinking about, let's just get right into it. What are those 7 triggers that marketers are really looking at and making sure that we're buying the products that they're putting out there for us?
Marketers use 7 triggers. In fact, we all use 7 triggers when we're trying to captivate someone, when we're trying to influence their decision making. And I spent 3 years researching why do we become influenced by certain things and not others. Yeah. And I found that throughout history, there are these 7 triggers that influence every decision that any human being has ever made. Doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter what you do, and it doesn't matter even what socioeconomic level you are. You want to know the 7 triggers?
Let's do the 7 triggers.
Okay.
These are good.
What are they? Yes.
Okay, so if you've got a test that you have, and we did the test, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Why did you create the test for everybody to find out who they are? Why did you do that?
Because the triggers aren't just about marketers. The triggers are really something that you do it every single day, whether or not you realize that you have certain natural strengths, you have characteristics and talents, ways that you influence people. But the way you influence somebody is going to be different than the way you influence somebody. We all have our own unique patterns. And if you can identify what those are, you can hone them and you can become more influential.
So people themselves can, using these triggers, can learn how to manipulate other people in the ways they want to.
I don't like to use the word manipulation. Let's say persuade.
Well, I'm thinking lost and manipulate, and I think it's really sexy. Okay, so what were you?
I was power and prestige.
Ooh, power and prestige is Armani. Power means that you're in a position of authority and you have control over a situation, but prestige means that you're respected, you're aspirational and goal-oriented, and people want to be like you. You're at the top of the peer group.
That's so very true, though. You know, that is true. Mine was mystique and lust.
Yeah.
No, but nobody's buying it. Nobody's buying it. You're not buying it, are you? Mine was Godiva. It was mystique and lust.
Mystique and lust, mystique is about unanswered questions. So it's about drawing somebody and making them curious, not putting everything on the table, always leaving a little bit left unsaid. But lust is about warmth and about making people feel like they can be close to you with an open style of personality. So it's unusual to find mystique and lust in the same personality type.
So how can these affect our personal lives then? Us knowing this and everybody going in and finding out what they are, how's that going to, when they find out these triggers, what they are, how does that help them?
That's a great question. When you know what your primary and secondary triggers are, like we know mystique and lust and power prestige, what that means is that when you're being your most influential and people are the most likely to be persuaded by the communication you have for them, you're using mystique and lust. And what that means is you're provoking them to think a little more about your message, but you're doing it in a way that makes them feel like they can come closer to you to find out more about it.
Okay, and go to our website because you can look for the F-score test. It's absolutely phenomenal to find out what your triggers are. And Sally has brought a giveaway for everybody at home. Just go to our website for a chance to win a copy of her book, Fascinate. It is absolutely phenomenal.
Fabulous thing. Again, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
From NBC News, this is Today.
And welcome back to Tampa, home of Super Bowl 43. Tonight, about 100 million people will be glued to their TV sets watching the game and also watching the commercials. Here with a look at the best Super Bowl ads of all time are Jonah Bloom, the editor of Advertising Age, and Sally Hogshead, a branding expert, CEO of Hogshead Media. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Margaret.
Before we get to the ads themselves, let's talk about the impact these ads have in terms of what they do for advertisers. This is the one time of the year where people really go to the TV to watch the commercials.
Super Bowl advertising is the one thing that the whole country has in common. So it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter what you do or what you believe. You're probably going to be watching the Super Bowl commercials tonight and talking about them tomorrow in the office.
I'm curious, I mean, obviously we have a globe because we not only staged a successful games, nothing went way off the rails, but we also had a record medal count. So that's fantastic. Were we on that track regardless of what happened in the medal count, or is that sort of is our brand really bolstered by the wins?
Well, you can't deny the effect that those gold medals have on the overall Canadian brand. There was a really strong spirit, though, that was coming through in these games that I think the world has not seen before. There was a sense of pride, even a little bit of strutting going on, and a lot of great marketing iconography that came through beyond the gold medals.
What are the triggers you're talking about in your book? What are some of the things you can do to fascinate and captivate?
There are 7 different triggers that we can all use: power, prestige, lust, vice, alarm, mystique, and trust. Now, Canada traditionally has used trust, using function over form with a lining of fleece. But now we saw Canada coming out with a little bit of prestige, a little bit of power, and shaking its groove thing.
So forget the trust and get me into the lust. How does that work? How does Canada get lust as part of its portfolio?
Canada did use lust with those red mittens, the iconographic red mittens that now have sold 4 million. The fact that there was a visual example, it gives people a sense of something to feel close to, an icon that they can crave, that bright pop of color. It was unlike anything that any country has ever done before.
It's interesting, though. I mean, I don't know about lust, but one thing we did going into these games was the whole own the podium, and it really threw people off. I mean, they're not used to getting that from Canada. They didn't seem to like getting. They liked the inflatable mooses, I bet, at the closing ceremony much more than they liked the Canada actually standing up and saying, "We're going to win." So can you actually change your brand a little bit along the way?
I think that Canada needed to change its brand in order to give itself a little bit more mojo, and I think it was a huge coup the way the country came out and not only had a message through the performance of the sports, but also told the world what was going to be coming next. They raised the bar in a really effective way. I think any corporate brand could be jealous.
How does Toyota regain its customers' trust? Marketing expert Sally Hogshead is the author of Fascinate, Your 7 Triggers to Persuasion and Captivation. Good morning.
Good morning, Harry.
Do you think this whole series of steps, missteps, recalls, and everything else will do irreparable damage to Toyota?
I think we're going to be seeing for at least a decade, maybe 2, that there are going to be some major problems with the Toyota brand, because the brand has been founded upon trust, upon reliability and safety and certainty. So the very core bedrock of the brand has now been struck hard by this, and consumers are doubting whether or not Toyota was forthcoming enough with them.
Right, because we're hearing, you know, we responded in this way, and then you find out after the fact, well, there were reports that go back 2 or 3 years even.
Even longer than that with the insurance companies. The insurance companies were starting to warn Toyota of this, that they were seeing problems throughout the line, and Toyota quietly put all of them away. So not only are there class action problems, but there's an irreparable damage with the image that Toyota has of trust.